with it being a developmental issue, why is it that women now are getting diagnosed in adulthood at greater rates? And I think there's a part of that in terms of there's more awareness of it now, what the symptoms are that comes with social media, but also why are they not picked up as much as they are with boys? If it's the same condition, why is it presenting so differently?
There are some difference in manifestations and disruptive behaviors. So this will be an unfair gender bias, but illustrative example, like for children, like a way to think about it, just for illustration of this point is young boys' ADHD gets seen in the classroom where girls are more likely to show up on the playground. And the impulsivity might show up in social relationships, and that's where the problems show up. But those are things that may not lead educators, with all respect to them or other people, to think ADHD right away. And more likely, it's not more, one of the myths I think has been women are more likely to present with the inattentive presentation of ADHD without the hyperactivity and impulsivity. Now, that may be true in terms of some of the overt signs of the hyperactivity and impulsivity, but there can be emotional impulsivity, verbal impulsivity, and even though it's not in the official criteria, the emotional dysregulation along with the distraction. So it may not show up in the ways that it shows up for young boys. So I think that's why the increased diagnosis in women in adulthood, what we would call late identified, not late onset. They had it all along, but it only got identified later because the hyperactivity and impulsivity that was there didn't look like ADHD because it might be showing up more in relationships, in tasks, and maybe less likely to be disruptive. And I think I'm right on this, if I remember the research correctly, that women with ADHD were less likely to at least show up with overt learning problems. Not that they don't exist. I want to be clear about this, but compared with boys, they weren't having as many overt school difficulties that signaled ADHD to people around them. So when we look at it by adulthood, the gender distribution is almost equal, which I would imagine because many of the studies about the boys outnumbering girls by like 10-1, that was like clinic referred children. So I think we just have more understanding about what ADHD looks like in girls, young women, and women.
So what would be a social impulsive? You said it shows up more on the playground. So what would be an example of that impulsivity in a social setting?
But, for children, for school age years, starting with younger, difficulties following the rule of the game, turn taking, maybe, jumping in, wanting to do things other ways, somehow disrupting the expectation, usually within a group. And then that's where exclusion can start happening, active rejection, you can't play with us anymore, or passive rejection. And this is like with smartphones. Yeah, why am I not on the group text anymore? So it's, for lack of a better phrase, it can be what's seen as annoying behavior and, not following the rules of the group. It can be talking too much, turn taking in conversation, saying the wrong things, saying the thing that was a secret, or whatever things like that, and that can get worse later on, like for adolescent girls, and it can be now more again, saying the wrong thing, reacting in anger, overreactions, and this is where things like forgetfulness, lack of follow through from the inattention, that can show up in school, but also can get in the way of social settings, and also at home with chores and things like that. And then usually we're getting into college, we can also start seeing more of the school related difficulties, later in middle school and high school, and then into college more. But usually early on, it's like the rules of the game, violating the rules of conversation, these unspoken rules, and the other things. And I'm not saying these are the best features of human nature, but we do divide ourselves up in the group. It's part of our factory settings. It can be done for good things too. But on the playground, that's where it might not show up as much in the classroom, where the teachers might see it and it's part of a teacher conference.